Well, I'm sitting here with Australia's very first female race caller of races and greyhounds, Victoria Shaw. Welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame.
Tony, how are you? Great to be here.
Now, Victoria, I understand you're heading overseas early next year to call some horse racing in Europe and the Middle East?
I have a number of engagements, Tony, with an Arabian tour. Unfortunately, with some of the locations we get to, we don't actually know too far in advance with our opportunity to call, but there will be some engagements at some of these venues throughout the year.
And that'll be horse racing?
Horse racing, yes.
Now, Victoria, you are familiar with tracks in Australia, specifically Melbourne. What about with Greg Miles retiring? Where does that place you?
Well, Tony, look, Greg Miles is an astonishing figure on a wonderful racing landscape, and Greg has set the bar so high, an incredible body of work that he leaves behind, and a great inspiration as well. I would hope that with movement within the race calling sort of field, that hopefully an opportunity would open up at the lower end of the spectrum for someone like myself to hopefully find a way in.
Now, as we know, AFL runs Melbourne and exponentially Australia.
Southern Australia indeed, yes.
Is Greg Miles, would he be compared to a Bruce McAvaney?
Look, I think the knowledge that both gentlemen have acquired over many years is extraordinary, and to sit down with either would be a wonderful opportunity and hear all of the history that they have and just are able to rattle off in a moment's notice or less. But of course, Bruce cut his teeth on 5AA calling trots many years ago too, so I think it's interesting how everyone comes back to the track.
Now, with women's cricket, specifically the WBBL, that is launching on the 10 network shortly. There's going to be female commentators.
Fantastic.
And also with the AFL Women's League launching in February 2017, we're going to have some female commentators and special comments girls. Surely the racing industry can do something similar.
You would think, from what I've seen overseas in the last 2 years in particular, it's interesting to see the movement, particularly out of the Islamic sporting world in the Middle East, and the opportunities they're opening up for women in such a short space of time, yet the opportunities here in Australia, particularly in the racing field, are still outside my grasp. However, having said that, I am incredibly thankful to recent opportunities with the Sandown Park Greyhound Racing Club here in Melbourne, and also Rob Tester as well, and to be calling races on a Sunday at a city track under Rob's watch, and of course these races are going international as well. They're legs of the quaddie. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it's a glorious sport too, and I'm very privileged to be involved with that.
If they threw you in the deep end and said call the Melbourne Cup next year, could you do it?
For greyhounds or horses?
Horses?
Would love to do one for greyhounds too, of course. The Melbourne Cup, look, it's a lot of work, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate what Greg's preparation would be for the Melbourne Cup that he's just called. I mean, there's probably about 10 to 12 hours worth of YouTubes he would go through. All of the form, the assessment, the times they're running. Of course, we're looking at the sectionals, the last 800, 600, 400, 200. They're breaking, particular times. We're looking for horses that are essentially capable of breaking 33 seconds for the last 600 metres. What were the tracks that they were racing on? And the overseas horses as well, all these conditions, you're trying to line up the assessment. And of course, you've got to have all of that stored up in your memory as well, not just on paper. It's probably a number of years away, but it's certainly something that I'm prepared to work towards.
Now, are you currently employed?
Within the racing industry full-time? No, only in a part-time capacity.
And you're doing other work outside of that to sustain a mortgage?
I am. I'm a wonderful legal temp.
So Saudi Arabia's gain for Victoria Shaw could be Australia's loss?
United Arab Emirates. But we'll do that again.
So the United Arab Emirates gain could be Victoria Shaw. So the United Arab Emirates gain could be Australia's loss?
Perhaps, but I'm willing to take the punt.